and the judges will introduce themselves.
Good morning, Ohio. My name is Petra Al-Sufi, and I am the Outreach and Partnerships Manager at the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding. We're a research and education group that research American Muslims and other faith communities. I'm also on the board of the Michigan Center for Civic Education, and about 17 years ago, I was in your position as a student participating in We the People program. So this is all to say, I know this is stressful today, but it's an experience that you will remember for the rest of your life, and hopefully will keep you inspired to stay active and engaged in civic education and civic life. Maria? Or Dan, sorry.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, Ohio. My name is Dan Wong. I'm a retired attorney and former judge. I'm on the National Board of Directors for the Center for Civic Education. I live in Boise, Idaho, and I'm old enough that We the People didn't exist when I was in high school. And gosh, I wish the We People did exist back then. I'm excited to listen to your testimony and presentation this morning. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Garnett. I live in Richmond, Virginia. I am a state government policy professional, so I'm currently a policy advisor for the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services. A lot of my experience is doing nonpartisan program evaluation, so how well are government programs performing, and policy analysis for the Virginia General Assembly. This is my third year of involvement with We the People as a judge, and I'm so jealous of all of you, kind of like Dan. We the People was around when I was your age, but I didn't know about it. So I hope you take a deep breath and just feel, get ready for having a great conversation with us this morning.
All right, so I will read your question number 2 for
Petra, let them introduce themselves.
Oh, sorry, yes, that is true.
I'm Ben Williams.
I'm Braylon Morton.
I'm Cody Melsna.
And I'm Ethan Jung. And our teacher is Mr. Dickman.
All right, nice to meet you all. All right, so now I will read the question. President Dwight Eisenhower said, "We must guard against the acquisition of unwanted influence by the military-industrial complex. The potential for disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. Do you agree or disagree, and why? What disagreement did the founders have about a standing army, and are they relevant today? And to what extent should there be an international U.S. military presence?"
Madam Chairman, President Eisenhower's assessment was correct to the extent that the military-industrial relationship created a self-perpetuating process that places a tremendous amount of power in the military and industry. Cold War politics of the 1950s and 60s led to the creation of an iron triangle between Congress, the military, and the defense industry. This relationship has allowed for the allocation of incredible amounts of money, as seen with a defense budget of over $714 billion and $445 billion being awarded in defense contracts in 2020. The problem of misplaced power can be seen in the immense influence the military has gained since 1787, in that even as the government was attempting to address the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, only 93 representatives and 23 senators voted to cut defense spending by 10% and allocate those funds towards the pandemic.
Madam Chairman, with the American Revolution and Shays Rebellion fresh in mind, the Founding Fathers disagreed on whether a standing army would provide needed security and defense for the nation, or be used to oppress the people's newly achieved freedom. By 1787, the Founding Fathers found themselves in a divisive situation in terms of whether a standing army was needed. Their experiences from the French and Indian War, as well as the Boston Massacre, had taught them that such an army could lead to a great financial burden and debt, which James Madison noted could ultimately enslave the people they were hired to protect. Still, others pointed to the Newburgh Conspiracy to address the historic threats that standing armies posed to their governments. However, as Alexander Hamilton contended in Federalist 28, state militias could address small problems, but a standing army would be needed to address rebellions and insurrections, undoubtedly addressing the difficulties that had been encountered during Shays' Rebellion of 1786 and 1787.
Madam Chairman, the founders' disagreements over a standing army are still relevant in that their immense financial burden have become a reality. With a standing army becoming inevitable after World War II, President Eisenhower warned the nation in 1961 that the development of the military-industrial complex created the potential for the use of misplaced power and a disproportionate influence on the government. This influence has grown at an incredible rate, as seen with defense spending accounting for over 54% of discretionary spending in 2020. In order to maintain this level of spending, the defense industry spent over $104 million lobbying Congress and contributed over $34 million in campaign contributions in 2020. This influence also caused recent concerns when defense contractors such as Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and others halted campaign contributions to the 147 members of Congress who voted against certifying the election of President Biden.
Madam Chairman, the U.S. should focus its military presence on promoting peaceful conflict resolution through international organizations which promote humanitarian goals while using military force as a last resort. Rather than speaking softly and carrying a big stick, as Theodore Roosevelt suggested, the U.S. should act in concert with other nations as seen when economic sanctions and eventual military actions were used to liberate Kuwait from Saddam Hussein in 1991. Further cooperation between the U.S. and our allies and collective security organizations such as NATO and the UN have proven vital in our effort to combat these threats. In addition, humanitarian interventions can be successful as seen in Kosovo and Haiti in the 1990s, but need to be more uniformly applied as seen when the UN and the US failed to act during the Rwandan genocide in 1994. Currently, the US could advance cooperation and collaboration around the world by providing support in the distribution of vaccines and supplies to nations that have been decimated by the COVID-19 pandemic. We are now ready for your follow-up questions.
Thank you. So my first follow-up question is, you argue that the U.S. military should not intervene internationally alone, and it should be participating with other organizations in other countries. So the question is, isn't the U.S. military by leaving its presence, by removing its presence in involvement today, wouldn't it be leaving a void and giving it to other countries like China or Russia who might not have the same values as we do?
Madam Chairman, I believe that sort of the approach we should take is that we should not currently try and go into other countries, and that the countries that we already are in due to conflicts, we should try to slowly lessen our presence there while building up their own sort of government or presence, I guess. So I believe that in the future, the U.S. should not have any international sort of presence without the backing of these organizations, so it should not act alone. However, in the countries that they are already in, we should slowly begin to peel back our presence.
All right, so I want to follow up on that. The testimony was that where the U.S. military already is, we should lessen our presence while building up the government. What about Afghanistan and Iraq? We've been in Afghanistan 20 years attempting to build them up, and now we're lessening our presence. I think there are many who say that our ability to build them up has failed. So I want to press you on that thought that we should lessen our presence while building them up. What else can we do? Any different type of action the U.S. military should take while they're there?
Mr. Chairman, I believe there are other ways to sort of stimulate a government. I believe that the military might be seen, especially in many places, as a sort of negative or oppressive force, and that having them there has created tensions. There are things we could, for example, economically support places in Afghanistan, but I think having that military presence there does raise tensions.
Okay.
In thinking about scaling back or withdrawing from an overseas presence, one of the things we've seen is that equipment from the military has been distributed instead to police departments throughout the United States. Is this something that we would need to be concerned about if the US international military presence were scaled back? And what types of protections do you think should be in place to make sure that military equipment cannot be inappropriately used by police departments here in the United States?
Madam Chairman, I believe that we can scale back our international military without having the equipment be used in like the police force simply by scaling back the budget of the military. Not only would that prevent more of this equipment from being like used and created, but I believe with the equipment that we already have, perhaps lending it to some of our allies that do not have as strong of a military could be an option, or simply just reusing or like not destroying, but reusing this equipment for other things.
I'm going to switch gear a little bit and ask you, should junior reserve officer training corps programs recruit students in high schools? Why or why not?
Madam Chairman, could you repeat that question, please?
Yes. So should the junior reserve officer training corps programs recruit students in high school? So should any part of the military, for example, be recruiting students in high schools? Why or why not?
I personally think that we should recruit students in high school. I think that by recruiting them in high school, it gives them more knowledge and more option. So it allows them the choice to choose whether they would like to participate in our military and fight for their country, which I also think by recruiting them, we eliminate having to draft people unwillingly.
Madam Chairman, I do have to disagree with my colleague in that I don't believe that they should be drafting or not drafting, recruiting from high school aged students, as many high school aged students are still, their brain is still developing. They're still learning how to make the right, correct choices. Many don't even know what they want to do in life. And it seems almost wrong morally to expect some of them to make a choice on whether or not they want to lead towards a path towards military, even if it's not a permanent path.
Madam Chairman, I would like to agree with my colleague Cody in the fact that many high school age students also, although there is an increasing amount of world knowledge, I believe that many high school students do not know exactly a lot of the affairs that happen in the world, and I believe that some of them may not know exactly what they're getting into by signing up for the military. So I believe that there should be maybe an improvement in maybe knowledge of what exactly the military is doing, especially in foreign affairs.
So when I first read this question, talking about the industrial military complex, quite frankly, I kind of thought it was an old school. We're in a modern world of technology. So shouldn't we be more concerned about the technology military complex versus the industrial military complex? Any thoughts on that?
Mr. Chairman, I think that the technological and industry, they coincide together. So we are building weapons with more advanced technology. However, that still requires industry to build them. So they coincide with one another. So as we advance technology, the industry also grows as well.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to add that many of these industries that we're contributing to don't just do a certain thing. They've begun to branch out into things like technology and these other aspects so that they can include more of these different branches in what we would term like the industry. So
And that's
although we
time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Good job, guys. So I enjoyed listening to your opening statement. I thought you guys had a good opening statement with historical evidence and applications. I enjoyed hearing your last couple answers where most of you participated and you really agreed and disagreed with each other and gave your opinions. That was, you know, that was good to see in a hearing like this. One feedback was on the earlier questions we asked you, it seemed it was a little bit either hard for you to come up with answers, or I wasn't sure if it was just one person designated to answer these questions or not, because we only heard from one person. So that was it was interesting for us to see that. So what I would recommend in the future is, try to address the question with, if you don't know the answer, maybe ask the judge to repeat the question. That way you're buying time. It doesn't seem like you just don't know. And also try to have a wider understanding of the subject. So what I would recommend is practice, coming up with all the random questions that are connected to the topic, because any one of them could be asked by the judges. But good job.
I enjoyed your presentation, and so far every team has mentioned the billions of dollars that we spend on the military complex, and I continually shocked by it, because we have lots of other issues, and I think we can spend several of those billions for healthcare and economic inequality and all that other stuff. But you had lots of facts to cite, the number of congressmen and who voted against reducing the military budget. You had facts and figures regarding the amount that's spent on defense contracts. So that's evidence-based testimony, and I appreciate that. With regard to answering cross-examination questions, going back to my coaching days, one of the things I would suggest and recommend is have your fellow team members from other units spend time firing questions at you, because they'll come from different directions and different backgrounds in their units, and your ability to answer questions is, part of it is based on experience. So let me make that recommendation to you for the future, is to have your fellow team members just fire questions at you, and you will develop the ability to answer more questions. But I did enjoy your presentation, and I did enjoy the evidence that you presented. Thank you.
I agree with everything that my fellow judges have said so far. One thing I will say, I really enjoyed that throughout, your opening statement, and then even in answering our questions, you kept, with addressing us as Madam Chairman or Mr. Chair, you maintained that feeling of a congressional hearing, and that doesn't always happen. And that was, I enjoyed that, honestly. That was, that reminded me of, the importance of what we're doing. I don't have much more to add other than, in my career, it's my job to try to think about, what kinds of questions, even questions out of left field, could, a lawmaker ask me about, the information that I'm providing to them. So that skill of trying to think outside the box and connecting to other units throughout the curriculum, that doesn't just matter for We the People. That will serve you well, in college and later on in your career. I hope that you all feel really proud of yourselves for getting to this point, for being these poised, articulate, passionate students that you are. And I'm really excited about your future. So thank you.
Thank you.